Hello, fellow book lovers. Welcome back to the channel. Visitors, if you happen upon the channel, feel free to join us. We would love to have you here. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, book lovers. Welcome back to the channel. This is your host, Blue-eyed Blackdevil, and I am here with the final installment to my video revisited. And this time, I am featuring the book, The Help, by Kathryn Stockett. Before I begin, though, let me apologize for any background noise you may hear. My 16-year-old daughter is in her room on her phone, but it sounds like she might be in here with me at times. So, my apologies. But in this, the last video I posted, we wrapped up with Hilly's front lawn commode catastrophe. But I want to delve a little deeper in this video into the relationships that the characters had with and to each other. And the first character I want to talk about is Skeeter. There were three characters that deeply enriched Skeeter Phelan's character to me. One of them was one of her childhood best friends, Hilly Holbrook. But then the relationship Skeeter had with her mother, and ultimately the relationship she developed with Abilene, Minnie, and all the other black help back then. Now, let's talk about Miss Hilly once again. When Hilly told them, meaning Elizabeth and Skeeter, that she had gone to the junior league to have that bill passed about the white people being required to have outhouses for their hired help, meaning black people or anybody of color. Whenever Skeeter made some sort of joke or tried to about that initiative, and Hilly was like, well, I would watch it if I were you. She said something along those lines. Well, on Skeeter's way home that day, she began to question what role, if any, did she have in Hilly Holbrook's life. Now, you have to remember that the three of those women, Skeeter, Elizabeth, and Hilly, had been best friends since elementary school. And now they are in their early to mid-20s. And I think Skeeter began to look back over the years of all of the times Hilly has said things that really nobody agreed with or disagreed with, which is probably why Hilly got away with as much as she did. But anyway, their relationship was done pretty much, but it started that night. Well, a little while later in the book, we learned that, Skeeter's family lived on the outskirts of Jackson. They had a cotton farm. Well, after the commode catastrophe, Hilly jumps in her car and goes running out there to Skeeter's house and to confront Skeeter about posting that in the newspaper. There was some pushing and shoving, a little pushing and shoving back and forth, but then Skeeter's mother, Charlotte Phelan, came outside and intercepted. And Hilly tried to get her point across and stuff, but Charlotte was not having it one way or the other. She ran Hilly off, and I believe that pretty much took care of the relationship Skeeter and Hilly had. Now, if they didn't stop speaking altogether, they probably were more cordial. So if they ended up in the same events or whatever, they could speak and wouldn't draw any attention. But the personal bond that was there between the two of them had been shattered. And because Hilly was such a dominating force, she probably forbade Elizabeth from having anything to do with Skeeter either. So that's how that usually goes. I don't like you, so now nobody else in our group can like you. Well, that pretty much settled the point with Hilly. Now I want to talk a little bit about Skeeter's relationship she had with her mother, Charlotte Phelan. And, okay, I'm wrong for this, but I just got to tell it right now. Right off the bat, Skeeter knew, or always felt rather, that she could never measure up to her mother's expectations of her, no matter how she tried. She was an honor roll student. She was not a disciplinary problem. And she really and truly wanted to go to college to go to work. Her end game was never to marry, or at least not right off the bat. It wasn't about being married and having children for Skeeter, but that was what her mother wanted her to do. So when Hilly came out there clowning and Charlotte ran her off, this is when the tables turned between Skeeter and her mother. They went inside the house and they had a little conversation. Now, Skeeter had secretly applied for a job in New York City. She didn't want to stay there in Jackson. Well, the night the lady from New York, Elaine Stein, called Skeeter's home, Skeeter was not there, so her mother took the call. So when they went back in the house from Hilly, the mother sat Skeeter down and she was like, "Do you have anything planned for tomorrow?" Skeeter said, "No, ma'am." She said, "Good, because we're going shopping." And she told her that no daughter of hers would be going all the way to New York City. Something she was saying. That was her way of letting Skeeter know that she had gotten a job. Skeeter was like, "Well, how did you know about New York City?" And her mother said, "Well, she called last night, but you weren't home." So as happy as Skeeter was to know that she finally got a job in New York City, her mother was going through cancer at this time, and it was touch and go there for a while. But she had, come around a little bit. She was feeling better. She was still real weak because she asked Skeeter to take her back into the house, and Skeeter did, of course. But when her mom told her that about New York City, she sat there for a minute, and then she said, "I can't leave you like this." Now, Skeeter really did not have a relationship with, basically, Aileen. I remember Aileen, Elizabeth. And now it's time for you to live yours. Aileen always liked Skeeter. Sometimes because Skeeter always acknowledged her whenever they were in the same place at the same time. Back to our family. So like if almost cried. Skeeter rang the doorbell, and Aileen answered the door. She was saying, Skeeter was just as touched, because now she knows. Which I guess was whatever she felt her mother was harping on her back then. All of the time, for a white person to speak kindly to she was coming from a place of love. But that's what it was. And Skeeter got
When her mother
permission
said she was
to
proud
talk
of her,
to
she
Aibileen
was
about
like,
helping
okay,
her write articles
Skeeter,
for
how
the
dare you?
newspaper.
Skeeter was like,
At some
thank you,
point
but
in
I think she
time,
was still in the
Skeeter
state
finally
of shock.
got the courage up
Not by
to
getting the
ask
job now,
Aibileen if she knew
but
anything
she
about
knows
her,
how her
meaning
mother
Skeeter's
really
maid,
felt
Constantine.
about her.
And
All right,
Skeeter
so
was like, oh yeah, I knew.
she also
Not
told
Skeeter.
Skeeter during that
Aibileen was like,
conversation.
yeah, I knew
Now, I
Constantine.
told Dr. Say
Skeeter
that
got
they're
very
upset
excited.
in
Now here's
any
the
disease
backstory
area.
on
She said, but
Skeeter
I have
and her
decided
maid, Constantine.
not to die.
They, like
And Skeeter was
Aibileen and
looking
all of the
confused.
black
No,
children she reared,
I
were
decided
very
I'm just
close.
not gonna die.
Very close.
And
Skeeter and
she
Constantine,
went back to
that
talking
is.
about getting her wardrobe
When
ready
Skeeter left for
to
college,
move to New York
they stayed
City.
in
She was
touch.
like,
They
and
wrote
besides, I
weekly
tried to
letters
schedule
to
your
one
hair
another. And the
appointments,
last one
but they just
Skeeter
wouldn't take
got from
appointments 20 years
Constantine,
from now.
she told
And so
Skeeter
they
that
laughed a little bit
when she
about
came
it.
home, she
But I
had a
do
big
feel
surprise
like
for it, and don't bother trying to
it
ask
might
what it was. She
eventually,
would see
at
when
the,
she got
at the
home.
beginning, look like
Skeeter
Charlotte
chose not to
was just
walk or
defending
participate
Skeeter to
in the
kill it
graduation
just
ceremony.
because.
She just got her diploma and went home, and she
Now
was
we
there for
know
a few days.
that she was
maybe like a
genuinely
week before.
sincere
You don't know what
when
is
she
Constantine.
stepped up
And
to
everybody
him.
she asked,
And I know he'll
they all
probably
were
cried
like,
all
I
the
don't
way
know,
home.
I
'Cause
don't
it's
know.
probably
Well,
the first
eventually
time
the mom
anybody
told
other than
Skeeter that
her own
Constantine
mother
had
had
decided
ever
to go
dared to say anything to
move
the
in
country
with her
to
sister.
Hilly.
But that just did not sound right to Skeeter. So eventually, one night, her dad came home and they were talking a little bit. Skeeter asked her dad. He said, well, she went to move with her sister, Skeeter. That's what she told her mom. That's what she told your mom. Well, it was in that Skeeter knew she was done asking white people. She didn't know for a fact what, if anything, they knew about Constantine's abrupt departure. But she felt like if she was going to even scratch the surface, she would not be able to do it amongst her own. So after talking to Aibileen for a while, she finally got the nerve up to ask Aibileen what she knew. She was like, well, do you have an address or a phone number I can reach? And at that point, Aibileen realized she probably said more than she should have. But it wasn't enough to get her in trouble. So, Aibileen just stopped and she was like, no, I really don't know. And Skeeter was like, okay, so how do you know her? And she said, well, we belong to the same church. But nobody in the church knew how to get in touch with Constantine or why she left. They just knew that they stopped seeing her. Well, somewhere along the way, Skeeter finally found out what happened, which was this. Her daughter, Constantine, had a daughter named Rachel. And it was said that Charlotte and Skeeter both were crazy about Constantine and Rachel. But when the story was retold back to Skeeter, there was no sign of them ever liking the two. There was no sign of Charlotte ever liking Constantine and Rachel. Oh, and let me say this while I'm talking. This is my 5th time reading this book. So why is it that I just found out reading this book this last time that Constantine's father was white? And in all honesty, when Constantine disappeared, I was like, oh, they fired her. I was like, I wonder if Constantine and Charlotte are siblings. I really did question that. It was either going to be that Or Charlotte fired her because she caught her having an affair with her husband, Charlotte's husband, Skeeter's father. Well, I was pleasantly surprised to find out that I was so terribly wrong. Initially, I was pleasantly surprised. But what happened was Charlotte was giving some sort of function at her home. It was some sort of a party. And I think she said the name of the group was Daughters of America. Anyway, it was all upper class, white debutantes and socialites and this, that, and the other. Well, Charlotte knew that Rachel was coming to get Constantine to take her home. But she wasn't expecting her until the week after this function. But Rachel popped up like 3 or 4 days early, and it just so happens that she showed up at the time that Charlotte was hosting that party. Well, she knocks on the door, and they speak. And Charlotte comes out on the porch, closes the door behind her so that she could talk to Rachel. She told Rachel to go around back and come in through the kitchen. She went back inside and shut the door in Rachel's face. Rachel stood there for a couple of seconds, and this time she didn't knock. She just walked straight in. And once again, Charlotte told Rachel to go through the kitchen. To the back and come in through the kitchen. Rachel said, I'm going through the kitchen, but I'm speaking to my mama first. So everybody looks at Constantine, who was standing in the doorway while all of this took place. And some lady, elderly lady, old. Of course, I know a lot of it probably was makeup. But anyway, she stands up and says to Charlotte, "You may put up with this type of foolishness, but I don't." And so it got quiet. And the very next thing that was said was, "Get out of my house." So Rachel and Constantine, they were just like standing there, mouth open. They didn't know what to make of it. Then this old biddy stands up and says, "You heard a girl. Go on." So Constantine was like, "Miss Charlotte, let me talk. Come here, Rachel, baby. Let's go to the kitchen. Let's talk." So as they were heading that way, that lady still wasn't satisfied with Charlotte. She didn't like the way Charlotte was handling the situation. So she got up, and as they were going to the kitchen, that lady said, "Charlotte?" Charlotte said, "Both of you, get out of my house." And so that is when Constantine ceased to exist to the Phelan family. All because some lady, white lady, because of her wealth or whatever, felt that she could make Charlotte do whatever it was she wanted to be done.